Triangle angle sum theorem. This is one of those ideas that's not super difficult. If you understand how it works, then the problems aren't too crazy. Basically, this theorem says if I took a protractor and I measured all 1, 2, 3 angles of any triangle, they would always add up to 180 degrees every single time. Doesn't matter what kind of triangle it is. Every time that I measure all 3 angles, they always need to make 180 degrees. The problem with this is some students sometimes confuse angles with sides. So I've heard people ask me if all 3 sides would add up to 180. That's not true. It's all 3 angles if I measure that with a protractor. So all 3 angles of a triangle, these would always add up to 180 degrees every single time. Doesn't matter what shape, size your triangle is, as long as it's a triangle. So here's a good example problem. This one's a little difficult. Here this problem is asking me to solve for angle H. They tell me that this is 56 degrees and this is 148 degrees. So I just need to do a little bit of work here. Right away I noticed that I can get this bottom right angle if I just subtract 148 from 180, because straight lines are also always 180, or we call that supplementary. So if I subtract 180 minus 148, and again, that's just because a straight line always makes 180. It always makes supplementary pairs. If I subtract these, I get 32 degrees. So I know that this kind of inside angle here has to be 32 degrees. And now I have enough information to figure out this top angle for angle H. If I subtract this again, if I subtract from 180, so if I do 180 minus these other 2 angles, so minus 56 and minus 32. So if I can subtract all of these, I should get 92 degrees. All right, so it looks like this one is not to scale. That's clearly smaller than 92 degrees. So kind of a trick question here, but this triangle would not be to scale. Okay, let me do kind of a harder example here. Here I've drawn an example where I have to do a little bit of algebra to solve this, but I'm still kind of setting it up the same way, right? I know that all 3 angles here, they have to add up to 180 degrees, just like with the last one. So if I sort of add all these, 2x plus 1, and if I add this other angle, 5x plus 5, and if I add this third angle up here, the box tells me that this third angle up there is 90 degrees. If I add all 3 of these things, they need to make 180 degrees. And so from here, I could just use some algebra. I can combine like terms. I can solve this with algebra. 2x plus 5x is 7x, right? 1 plus 5 plus 90, that gives me 96. And I'll just bring down the 180. So next, I'm just using algebra. I'm going to subtract 96 from both sides. I'm going to get 7x equals 84. And my last step to get rid of this times 7, I'm just going to divide both sides by 7 to get rid of that. So I get x equals 12. And that's probably my final answer. It really just depends on what the question is asking me. If they ask you to solve for x, you just write x equals 12. If they ask you for all 3 angles, I have to do a little more work, and I have to plug that back in. So first of all, I know that this first angle here is 90 degrees. That's what the square tells me. For these bottom angles, I just need to plug in that 12, right? So 5 times 12 is 60, and then plus 5 is 65 degrees. Or this one over here, 2 times 12 is 24, plus 1 is 25 degrees. So just really depending on what the question's asking you, just kind of determines how much work you have to do there.